The following is a sponsored episode.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the show. Today, I'm joined by my dear friend, Jenna Bonham-Carter. Gemma, you are a repeat guest, actually, on Cubicle to CEO, so we're super thrilled to have you back. Thank you for being here.
So excited to be here. I feel like I need that on a button or something. Have been on Cubicle to CEO 2 times.
I love that. Also, I just got to see Gemma last week. We were both in Austin together for a conference. And so I adore Gemma and everything she stands for, both in life and business. You guys are going to love our conversation today all around how she uniquely uses AI in her business. And this is not your typical, surface level, like, oh, here's how you use AI to increase your efficiency or productivity, XYZ. Gemma really uses AI in such a creative way. So we'll get into that in just a moment. But first, a quick intro to Gemma. She has been making money online since before Instagram was probably on your phone. So she is a go-to expert in online courses, email marketing, and now AI. She's helped over 20,000 entrepreneurs to date through her programs, and her business has consistently done over 7 figures in annual revenue since 2022. Gemma is also the founder of AI All-Stars and hosts the popular virtual conference, which Cubicle to CEO has partnered on before, AI Unlocked. I know many of you love and look forward to it every year. So Gemma, let's get right into the here's how I run a successful business with AI. What I think is really interesting, and we talked a little bit about this at dinner when I saw you last week in person, you have built a consistent 7-figure education business, but you actually recently made a bold decision to retire multiple programs, including one of your most loved flagship programs, which was Passive Profit, and you went all in on AI education. What's interesting about that choice for you is that, of course, right now, AI is the hot thing, right? The market is flooded with AI prompts and education and info and all that stuff. So why did you decide that now was the time to jump in? And what made you confident enough to be able to pivot your business in such a drastic way?
Yeah, this is a great question. So let me preface by saying, this was not a quick decision. This wasn't me seeing an AI bandwagon, jumping on board, saying goodbye to everything. When I look back, I did that first season of AI Unlocked as a real kind of experiment of, hey, I'm dabbling in this ChatGPT thing. I'd love to know how you guys are using it too. Let's come together. Let's do a virtual conference and share kind of best practices and tutorials. That was back in early 2023. And if for everybody listening, ChatGPT sort of came out to the public market at the end of 2022. So I was jumping on there early and having those conversations, and not in any way to pivot my business into that direction, but just to share best practices. And what I have seen over the last 3 years, we're now into 2026, is that I just love this topic. And so teaching it, learning it, helping students use it has become such a sort of joy-filled part of my business. And that's always been a thing for me, is follow what you're passionate about, follow the thing that feels easy to want to research, talk about, share about, right? And I've always let myself do that. So I think that's always been kind of a guiding direction for me. And I've pivoted lots of times, right? I started by teaching bloggers back in 2016. My very first course was how to monetize your blog. Guys, it had a terrible name. The Blog Monetization Blueprint. I look back at that now. Oh,
well,
boy.
You know what, Gemma? I was going to say, actually, though, I mean, maybe it wasn't the most creative name per se, but I always tell people clarity matters more than creativity. And those are keyword rich. People are searching that, or were searching that at least at the time. So good for you.
Totally. Yes. Always here for some clarity over the catchiness. That's for sure. I'm not good at coming up with catchy names. I'll be very, frank about that. But, I've always, like I said, followed those little hits from my intuition. And I think if I'd allowed myself, if I'd stuck with my original topic, I'd still be teaching about blogging today. I'd be incredibly out of date. And so I think always just following that has been important for me. And I saw the markers when it came to what the business data was telling me too. over those 3 years that I've been more and more talking and teaching about AI, those programs, those offers, those workshops, slowly but surely had become the largest driving factor to my bottom line every year. And so it was a little bit of, hey, let me tune into what I'm really enjoying teaching. And also let me make sure that I'm making like an informed decision that's backed up by the data. And it was both of those things. And that's, not to say that I wasn't really sad to say goodbye to that coaching program. I'd run it for 7 years, the same program. Some of the people in that program had been with me for almost that entire time. I definitely cried like a baby on our last group coaching call. And, it was bittersweet. But I think the other interesting thing is it's not like I fully have stopped talking about marketing or teaching some of those concepts. I'm just teaching them now with an AI lens on top of them.
I concur with that assessment, just being on your email list and being in your world. I also think that what I love about your teaching in particular, it very much has that approach that we kind of utilize here at Cubicle the CEO of I'll go first. Like you're not, espousing theories or, something that you read in an article and you're like, here's, 5 hot tips that are working right now. You are actually testing and building all the time, within AI, within your own business. And then once you have figured out something that works, you're like, okay, let me teach you how to replicate what I've already done in my business, which I think is so smart. And I know I prefaced this at the beginning that a lot of entrepreneurs, when they teach or talk about AI, they talk about it through the lens of this is how you use it as a productivity hack to work faster, to work more efficiently. But you truly treat AI like it's actually building your business infrastructure. So what does that actually mean? Can you break it down in a tangible sense of how that looks in your day-to-day business? And how does that really shift everything in terms of a course creator or a coach's revenue potential?
Yeah, so I think the way that I really thought, after the sort of initial use cases of, sure, using AI for time saving, I really started to think about it from the perspective of how could I build a team that is going to support business growth and have that be an AI team. Not that I don't have a human team, I do too, but they're part-time, we're very small but mighty, but I am interested in scale. And so instead of hiring those as people, I thought about, okay, let's start building that infrastructure using AI. And it hasn't been perfect, but over time, I've really dug into using these tools as effectively as possible. And I think people just scratch the surface and like use one of the LLMs mainly as a glorified Google search, as opposed to really utilizing the capabilities that are there. Like if you think of some of these huge companies that are using the same tools that you are, right? They're using OpenAI or Anthropic, just maybe at an enterprise level. The capabilities are the same, more or less. And so you have a lot at your disposal at that $20 a month plan that you can really dig into. And so that's what I did over time. First, I looked at all of the operations, kind of department by department of what we were doing in the business, and took an AI first lens to them, and wherever possible, implemented kind of an AI tool, teammate, whatever, into those processes. But then also thought about, well, if I were hiring and wanting a full marketing team or a product development team or whatever that looks like, what would those roles be? And then I just built them for AI. And it's been incredible. Like not only the time, of course, like the time gains, but the depth of the work that can be produced in such a short time frame. Like we're able to get more products out the door, get launches together faster than ever that are better, even like they're more nuanced, they're more thoughtful. Often we'll now also use AI as my thinking partner. So I think it's really important to always bring your unique thought, the opinions, your experience, your thought leadership, your stories, all of that as personal brand entrepreneurs still needs to come from us. But if you can have a partner, like I come up to Claude every morning for my Claude and coffee time, and I sit with my coffee and I chat with Claude. And it's not that I'm diving straight into my to-do list. It's that I want to spar a little bit and talk through, okay, here's what I'm thinking. These are my priorities right now. Here's where I'm getting tripped up. This is what's like holding me back, or I'm not sure whether I should go in this direction or that direction. And having that thinking partner who knows everything now at this point about me, my business, the way I operate has been just incredibly helpful.
Okay, my mind is going in a million directions. I literally, as you were talking, I was like, ooh, want to ask about that. Ooh, want to expand on that. Ooh, want to clarify that. So I'm going to try to not lose my train of thought here. But first and foremost, like this clotting coffee thing, I love that. There's a catchy little bantery type of name you could coin. But I feel like for our listeners, they probably hear that and they're like, okay, theoretically, I understand the concept, right? Like, okay, I sit in front of, whatever learning model I want to use, and I leverage that as a thought partner by kind of exactly what you said, thinking through these types of things. But in practice, I feel like a lot of people would stare at this blinking cursor and be like, okay, but like, what exactly is that going to spit out for me? And then how do I implement anything that comes from this verbal spar, if you will? So what would be helpful is actually, Gemma, if you have a recent conversation, like a back and forth you had with Claude in the morning from this week or last week that you want to actually pull up, you don't have to read us the whole thing, but if there's like one or two example thoughts or questions that you fed into it, and then whatever output it gave you that you then utilized in some way in your business, I would love, and I'm sure our listeners would love to hear what that actually sounds like.
Yeah. Okay. Well, here, I don't need to pull one up. I can just pull from something that has happened really recently. So this is very timely. So in the news lately has been this big kind of like AI drama of OpenAI kind of making a deal with the US administration with their Department of War. So it's this big conversation, and then a large movement of this quit GPT, 1.5 million people leaving OpenAI, Claude becoming the number one app in the App Store. So I came to my desk on Monday morning. This was right after we got back from Austin and having seen each other. And I was like, okay, there's a lot going on in the news right now. I'm already a Claude user. I have made my flagship program, AI All-Stars, platform agnostic, meaning you can take what I'm teaching you and giving you in this program and apply it on Gemini, on Chat, on Claude, whichever platform you want. But I feel like this is a moment and I should probably capitalize on this. It's been very rare that I've had like a news story that I can kind of jump on a bandwagon and, use to my advantage. I'm not really good with sort of viral trends or anything of that nature. So this was my back and forth. That was just the question. You can tell it's not like I had some very in-depth or big thought pattern. I just came to the desk saying, this is what's happening right now in the news. It's kind of popping off everywhere. How should I capitalize on it? Or how should I think about this? And so back and forth with Claude, we had this conversation that in the end, we came up with a bit of a sort of a plan, both from a content that I could be putting out at this time, which I will tell you has been the most popular content that I've published on Instagram in the last like 18 months. Like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm getting this many comments. And also a promotional plan. Like we put together an entire kind of quick and dirty launch strategy. I'm doing a free class next week. It's going to launch into my AI All-Stars program. We put this together in a matter of like a 20-minute back and forth conversation. So there's just a really clean example of like, hey, this is happening in the news. How should I use this to my advantage as the CEO of this company? And in the end, we came up with something really practical. And to your question about, okay, maybe I come and ask these questions, but then how do I implement it? Or how do I take that to the next step? Ask the LLM. Like, it's one thing to ask it, to tell it maybe something you're thinking about or struggling with, or just what what you woke up thinking you might do as your to-do list that day. Like it can be as simple as that. Be like, hey, just checking in today. Here's what I have going on. What do you think about that? Or do you think these are the priority items I should be focused on? And just see what it writes back to you. And then if you're thinking about, well, how do I implement these things? Ask it for an implementation plan. I think most people think they need to have these really thoughtful prompts or be really clever in their engineering of how they talk to AI. And sometimes it's just about continuing to ask more and more questions.
That's really helpful. Thank you for walking us through that example, Gemma. I also feel like, just real quick, for anyone listening, I myself like if Gemma's at 100 for AI, I am probably at the expertise level of like a 3. So so if you're in my boat and you're like, LLM, what is that? What are you even talking about? Don't worry. LLM is an acronym that stands for, I believe, language learning model. So anytime you hear Gemma or I say that, we're referring to, again, one of those like tools that you can use like Gemini or ChatGPT or Claude. There's others too, but those are like the 3 big ones. So
yeah. Can I just make one little also addition?
Please.
One really fun thing with this thinking partner idea, if you want to take it to the next level, is so Ellen, if you were doing this, you might create a little, depending on whether you use Chat or Claude, they're called different things, but maybe you're using a project, okay, where you've given it some instructions or some background knowledge files, and then you talk within that project.
Yeah.
So you could go in and say, by the end of this year, this is what I want my business to look like. And you could state your goals. Or it could be your 5-year plan, whatever. And then if you talk to the AI within the context of that project, it will always know what you are ultimately hoping to get to from a goal perspective. So then if you come to the computer in the morning for that little coffee sesh and you're like, here's my to-do list, like, am I focused on the right things? It's responding to you in the context of knowing where you want to go. And so for those of us who maybe get shiny object syndrome, who go off the rails, who are spending too many hours in Canva doing little piddly graphics that aren't really pushing our business forward, this is your like accountability partner too, who's going to really keep you in check.
That's such a great point. It's like your extra barrier for kind of keeping you in check and that extra layer of discernment. So love that tip. Thank you. The AI All-Star team that you keep referencing. So like you mentioned, you are really using AI to build basically additional team members that you either don't have the budget or some other reason to actually like hire full-time human help, right? But how are you building, so to speak, these AI team members? I think, again, if we're talking from the lens of someone who isn't super familiar with AI in their everyday practices, what does that actually mean? Like, are you building a custom GPT? Is this like something you're coding or not coding, but like building, so to speak, through a tool like Lovable, which is like a no-code platform that you can build really cool things on? Like, what does that actually look like high level to create, I say in quotes, a team member?
Yeah, so you don't need to go into the vibe coding space. We don't need to get that complicated over here. This can just be within the AI model that you're using. So if it's ChatGPT, you might be using custom GPTs or projects. Both are usable. If you're using Claude, it's their skills feature that they came out with a couple months ago is like my favorite, because let me just explain to you on the Claude platform. If you have skills, you can think of them as the team members. So you might have a skill for an email copywriter. So you have built out your best practices for how you do email marketing. And that is now a skill that lives at your sort of AI organization's level. So any conversation I'm having with the AI platform, within a project, not within a project, whatever, anytime I'm saying, I need to write an email or I need to write a newsletter or a launch campaign or whatever, it will pull in that skill. So you can think of it like literally you have an email marketer on your team, and anytime you need to pull that email marketer in, there they are, right? To do it according to your best practices. And so you can think about that across your entire business, whether that you might have multiple copywriters for different types of things. You might have a data analyst, a customer support person, right? Tons and tons of potential skills. This is where I have over 30. And when I think about, to your question about, well, how do I build these? The technical part of it's a skill or it's a custom GPT, that part doesn't really matter. That's pretty simple. You can watch a little quick tutorial and understand where to upload things. What's more important is what goes into those skills or custom GPTs. So what are the instructions? What are those background best practices, which we might call knowledge files from an AI perspective? What are those? Because those are what make the difference in making these little assistants or teammates actually perform at a high level. And I think that's part of the thing that's missing in this conversation. You can go on YouTube, social, you can get tons of people sharing a custom GPT or even sharing now with Claude a skill file. You have to really understand whether, like, what is the level of those files? Are those actually good? or are they very generic? And so this is where, for me personally, I've been in online business, like my intro said, since before Instagram hit your phone, which frankly tells you a little bit about my age. I've been doing this a long time. So the skills or the custom GPTs, like the stuff that I built are based on like 10 plus years of best practices that I know to be true in digital marketing. It's like the Gemma Bonham-Carter version of what works. And it's not just what ChatGPT is referencing from Wikipedia or from Reddit. You know, a lot of the answers that you get on ChatGPT, like those are the two big sources are Wikipedia and Reddit. Okay. So if you're asking it to put together the instructions or best practices on, I don't know, how to write Instagram carousels, that's where it's pulling from. And so there's a lot more work that goes into that preparatory sort of work. And the other thing I like to say, if you were thinking about hiring a person, like an actual human, what's the job description? Because that's a little bit like what your instructions are. And then what would you expect them to have in terms of skill sets? Because that is essentially what those knowledge files or best practices are.
And you actually have an incredible resource, Gemma, that helps people put together like who they are, what their brand represents, how it comes across in the world in terms of voice, in terms of just like anything that makes your brand uniquely you. And it's your brand book, right? Like you have a way for people to package this up in a very succinct and organized way so that they can upload it to their preferred LLM and then again, train that at the organization level to implement across any of these individual skills or projects, so to speak, or custom GPTs. Can you share a little bit more about like your brand book, what that process looks like, and maybe even pull out like a specific example of something you included in your brand book that you've seen come into play throughout your AI All-Star team that has really made a difference in your business?
For sure. So we see this every day now on social media in particular, that things are starting to sound so much the same. And this is what we're going to see more and more of, like this AI generated content that just all feels, looks, and sounds the same. Your brand book is what will allow you to still use AI, but have it really produce output that is in line with your voice, your values, and how you want to come across in your business. And it really does come down to this brand book. And so people who are listening, maybe you've done exercises around pulling out, you know, your voice guidelines or having AI help you analyze your writing style or any of those types of exercises. This is a little bit like it's all of that stuff plus, all wrapped up into one big document. So yes, we want writing tone and style. We also want things like the favorite phrases you use, the little, if you're someone who says like, let's spill the tea, like, let's make sure that that's in your brand book. If you would never say the word girl boss, again, let's make sure that's in your brand book so that AI doesn't start using the word girl boss if that's not in your vocabulary. You know, it goes far beyond just like, let's stay away from AI jargon and gets much more specific. And then we also go into things like, I want that brand book to know everything about your ideal audience, so much more than, hey, they're like 35 to 45 and shop at Target and live in the States. That's not what we want. We want, what are their like emotional desires of what they're really trying to accomplish? What are the jobs to be done that they would need to successfully do in order to get the result that you're teaching? What's their idea of like a dream day versus a dreaded day? All of those things live inside of your brand book. So not only does the AI, once you implement this, not only is it able to match your style, your tone, your unique stuff that makes it sound like you, it's also then creating content that is so incredibly targeted to who you want to attract into your world.
Right. When I first came across Gemma's brand book, I seriously immediately jumped on it. It was funny actually at dinner the other night. I was like, oh yeah, I bought it over Black Friday. And you were like, you did? You didn't know. But I was like, yeah, it was like so good. Like seriously, a staple. It's like a foundational piece. I feel like if you're going to use AI in your business and you don't understand the nuances on the level that someone like Gemma does, you need this guidance if you don't want not even just your content, but just in general, even like the thought processes and and structures that you're building to come out like slop. And so I highly recommend, Gemma, I'll make sure that we get a link from you to put in the show notes. Like if this is like, okay, what do I do? Like, how do I get started? I would really, start with something like building out a foundational asset like this and download Gemma's brand book, her whole process. It'll be below in the show notes.
Yeah, you're so right. That's the perfect step one. And it's also the thing that if you do ever hire actual team members too, and you need like an onboarding manual, like this is it. This is like, hey, this is everything about our business and how we operate and who we're looking to pull it. Like if I were to hire someone to help me, I don't know, create social media content, this would be the first thing I would send them. They need to know my voice and style. They also need to know who we're creating content for. So it's like helpful on many levels.
Yeah. And I will say, speaking of a real life use case scenario, I just signed on for a new sponsored content campaign with a large software company that many of you would probably be familiar with. But one of the first questions they actually asked me, because they're helping to script the videos that I will be like on camera talent for. And they were like, do you have a brand voice, something that we can feed into the LLM so that we can make sure that anything we're creating is, authentic to you? And I was like, oh, that's so interesting. I was like, I feel like that question is only going to become more and more common as you work with creatives in any industry. It's an easy way for them to get on the same page with you without this massive intake form every single time. And so anyways, just thought I would throw that out there of like a real life use case that actually came up in my inbox like this week. So,
and similarly, so anytime I'm asked to go on a podcast or any kind of event or speaking at an engagement, whatever, I have multiple versions of a bio that live in my brand book. And so my team who's needing things like that, they never need to come to me for anything. It's all in the brand book. And that stuff used to exist, but it was like in a nested folder within our Google Drive. Yeah. Now it's like everything is in the brand book and it's the one-stop shop.
Yeah. And just so you all know, this isn't even just like, oh, here's like a Google Doc for you to fill out, like this big project. Gemma's actually working on, and you guys are probably the first to know because we literally just, again, talked about this over dinner a few days ago, but she is actively working on creating an interactive kind of like chat style back and forth process to help you build out this brand book in the easiest way possible, where it'll just be asking you questions and you can like literally go back and forth with it like a person. So Gemma, I don't know if you have any other details to share there that you can reveal at this time to our listeners.
I mean, just that, yeah, it's an exciting move. It was already, I would say, like a somewhat easy process of giving our users like all the prompts and then they could just use AI to help generate the brand book. But now, yeah, we've found this piece of software that's going to allow us to do it in a much more automated way. No more copying and pasting. And then it spits out a fully complete brand book at the end. So we're really jazzed about it.
I am so excited to try it. For those listening who want to grab the brand book and get started on this process, like today, this week, will they get the version that you're talking about once it's released if they purchased it previous to that being available publicly?
Yeah, we'll let all the customers know how to access it.
Amazing. And I also feel like it'd be really helpful for our listeners to kind of have a better picture of, you said you have like 30 team members. Again, I say that in quotes, but like 30 team members or Claude skills that exist in your company. Are you able to, you don't have to share all 30, but maybe like the 10 that you use most frequently? Are you able to pull up your Claude and kind of quickly, like just like one by one, hit it off for us?
Totally. I pulled it up right now, like as you're talking.
Amazing.
I can feel the question coming. So I kind of have them categorized by department. So obviously we would have a really extensive marketing department. Like I think anybody who is a personal brand entrepreneur or creating content would have this kind of setup too. And so we have skills or AI team members related to, writing hooks, a whole like YouTube creation kind of suite. We have one that writes specifically around carousels, like the text that would go on carousels. We have one that writes captions. We have one that writes it has all the best practices around email marketing. We have a podcast script writer, an interview prep assistant. We have a podcast producer. We have a pitch creator. So those are all kind of under that marketing department. Then I have ones for things like, I have one that knows how I like my analytics reviewed. Like we can put in all of our data and metrics and it will pull out reports in the way that I like them. I have one that's just my business coach, right? That we kind of talked about before of like, if it really understands my goals and where I'm going, that's the one that I can use as a back and forth business coach. I have one that helps do like a year in review. We have a customer service AI team member. We have a testimonial miner, which is really fun if you do group coaching calls, because then you can just plop your transcript in from your group coaching call, and anyone who left either something in the chat, like a comment in the chat, or said something in your group coaching call, if you're sharing wins or they came on and, shared anything in that group coaching call, it will pull out their specific word for word testimonial and give you the name of who said it. And then as long as obviously you're going to go and get their permission to share it, but then you can start mining all of your group coaching calls for those testimonials, which is a really nice way to beef up your testimonials folder. We have ones that write sales pages, that write landing pages. I have one that writes all my ad copy for me. And I use someone to manage my meta ads who I love. And just what we were talking about earlier, this whole campaign that we put together for doing this Claude workshop, I was like, okay, I know it's going to be, it's going to take her time. If I'm like, we're doing this in a week, we need to get ads running, but I don't expect you to like go and use your copywriter and use your graphic designer and all the things. So I just used my ad copy assistant. It pulled together 5 or 6 different versions in seconds that was so aligned and on brand. And I sent it to her and she was like, these are really good. We can roll with these right away. And so we were able to get ads turned on within a couple of hours. So, just having these at my disposal it's like having a team sitting around a boardroom table that every morning I can just hand things off to, right? And act as really keep myself in the CEO role, in an orchestrator role, in a visionary role, and not be always down in the weeds.
Absolutely. And I just want to point out, like really pull out for our listeners how specific those use cases are. Like you'll notice she didn't just have one that was like social media manager. It was as specific as captions versus carousels copy versus ad copy. You can get that granular with the specificity in which you train a team member, which is basically what your program AI All Stars is all about, right? Like helping people replicate and build this out for their own unique organization.
Exactly. And that's what we hand over. Like in that program, sure, I'm going to teach you some AI skills, beef up your understanding of how to use these tools. But the biggest win that comes from that program is me handing you those like 30 AI team members built. And I'm not handing them to my students like, here's a custom GPT for you to use. Here are all of the instructions and knowledge files for that AI assistant that you can then use on whatever platform you want. You can also edit and adjust here and there. Like if, you like 90% of the way Gemma does carousels, but you want to change 10%, you can, right? And make those super customized to you. And the beauty here is I hand over those AI instructions and knowledge files, but my students layer the brand book in. And then it's like you have Gemma's team with your brand book on top. And it's a game changer.
That's so cool. And I know most of the roles that you just listed were in the marketing department. Could you pull out just a handful of other AI team members that exist in other departments like operations or finances?
Yeah, I mean, we do, obviously a lot of our customer support happens via AI these days. We have definitely like the business analytics, the one that creates, I can dump in whether it's like spreadsheets from QuickBooks or just reports even from our sales transactions, obviously no like names or identifying information, and the way that it can pull themes and patterns for me to be able to then look at and make decisions based on that. Like I feel like I have more a hand on the pulse of what's truly going on in my business from a data perspective than ever because of the ease of being able to put these in and get such incredible results back. Like analyzing our funnels, all of that kind of thing doesn't have to happen by a human anymore because we've trained these assistants to do it for us.
That's amazing. The data nerd in me is like freaking out over this. So love that. I know we're close on time and you've got to jump, but one final question to kind of wrap up our conversation, Gemma. You are, like you said, you're on a trajectory to scale your company right now. You actually are targeting $10 million annual revenue. And while most online educators actually have struggled in recent years, especially in 2025, you actually had your best year yet in 2025. What are either the shifts in your business model, your positioning, or your use of AI that has made you recession proof when others weren't?
You know, people might think like, oh, it's because she started teaching about AI and that's why she's fine. And I'm still teaching about, the thing that I've been teaching about forever, and courses are
Yeah.
harder to sell today than they were. And I'm not discounting that the online course industry has certainly shifted and changed. But I've seen a lot of these changes already. Like I've been selling courses since 2016. 2020 had a big shift in the world of online courses. And then 2022, kind of another one. So I think the fact when you've been in business for a while and you have a certain amount of longevity of riding some of these trends, you get really grounded in the foundations of what actually matters and works from a business perspective, and making decisions like we were talking about it that are really data driven as opposed to getting emotional about things. And I think part of it is like making quick changes when we need to, being aware of kind of looking at the data so we're not at the end of the year going, oh, okay, wait, what happened there? Like we're very much on the pulse of things so that we can adapt as needed. I think that's been important in the last few years. And I think it comes down to some of those foundational things of like building up your personal brand, your reputation, your trust, your connection with your audience and your buyers, and making sure you understand what they're really needing and struggling with so you can solve those problems, and solving real problems. Like that's always been a guiding thing in my business of I'm trying to solve real problems for myself, and those are real problems that other people are facing too, and letting that sort of guide some of our product development too. So I think it's a bunch of it's a lot of things.
Yeah. But I think the thing that really stands out to me about what you're saying is it's not about the trends or the quick fixes like you mentioned, even though AI is trending right now, your success is really built on those long lasting principles and like building with the vision of, can I still be here in 10 years? Just like you've, already been here for over 10 years. So thank you so much for this insightful conversation today. Where can our listeners continue to connect with you and be part of your world, Gemma?
Yeah, come say hi on Instagram, first of all, at Gemma.Bonham-Carter. And then if you wanted to take this kind of AI conversation to the next level, the best thing would be to sign up. I do have a free workshop. So you can come in, see the back end of like those AI assistants that we talked about, the back end of how my team is set up. We'll talk about some of that infrastructure stuff. I'll actually do some screen sharing, come get nerdy with me. That would be the best thing to do. We'll make sure that the link is with this episode, but it's GemmaBonhamCarter.com/AI webinar.
Amazing. Again, all the links will be below. So make sure you click over, say hi to Gemma, sign up for that workshop, go click on the brand book. I promise you will be like the best asset you can add to your business. And it's not even expensive, you guys. Like that's the wild thing is like, this is such a core part of your business moving forward if you use AI, but I think it's like less than $200, isn't it? Okay, yeah, it's a no-brainer. Anyways, Gemma, thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you all for tuning in, and we'll catch you in the next episode.